Hey everyone, I'm Mind, and this is set number 71486, Castle Nocturnia from the LEGO Dreams theme. This set contains 1,742 pieces, 6 minifigures, and 5 of the smaller Dreamling figures, and it will retail for $199.99 in the US when it officially releases on August 1st, 2024. This set was gifted to me earlier for review by the LEGO group through the LEGO Ambassador Network, but all opinions expressed in this video are my own. This is, of course, a review of a LEGO Dreams set, and just like all LEGO Dreams sets, this set does have an alternate build. I will be covering both builds in this video, so make sure to watch the video all the way through if you want to see both. And also, let me know in the comments which LEGO Dreams set do you want to see an early review on next. But now, with all that being said, let's get into the review. So I'm going to start this video off by taking a look at this guy. This is Phil the Manticore, and the reason I'm taking a look at him first is because he's not rebuilt when you do the alternate build. He's the same in both versions. But yeah, this build is definitely very interesting. If you guys have seen the LEGO Dreams show, Phil is disturbing looking in the show, and this guy looks nothing like his show counterpart, which I think is a very good thing, because I think he looks atrocious in the show. I'll put a picture on screen right now of how he looks in the show. It's actually kind of scary. But he is a surprisingly important character in the show, so it is cool to finally get this character, because he did appear in Season 1 and we just never got a physical version of him. The LEGO version feels a lot more animal-like and a lot less human, which I think is a very good thing. That being said, while I like some aspects of this build, I think it's still very far from perfect. So let's take a look at all the details of it. The head, I would say, is probably one of the stronger parts. I like the printed lion eyes here, those look really good. And the mane made of stained glass is inherently just really cool. I think I would have liked to see the mane a little bit bigger, because it does feel very small compared to the head. He kind of just feels like a cat with some transparent glass fur, rather than being a lion with a full mane. So a little bit more there would have been nice, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. I like these triangular pieces coming off the side, those look really nice, and I also like the use of them for the ears at the top. And then there's a few stickers to add some extra detail to the stained glass. You can see it 3 different times on the head here. And then it's also used on the wings, which we'll take a closer look at in a moment. But yeah, those are all stickered, however the actual eyes are printed. And that's appreciated, because I never like when facial features are stickered. Especially on the cheese slopes, the prints just make sense. Phil's head connects to his body on a mini ball joint, so you can turn it left and right as well as move it down. Not a huge range of motion there, but enough for a lion like this is a very natural range of motion. It makes sense for a character like this. Coming to the lion's back, there's a lot of open studs here so you can sit characters down. I think that looks perfectly fine with the minifigures actually on there. But it's maybe a little bit awkward with them removed. I think I would have liked a few more tiles in here, though that's a very easy customization to make if you wanted to. My bigger issue is honestly just how thin the body is, and that continues into the legs too. If this was meant to be like a baby lion like Simba from The Lion King, I think these proportions would work. Even then I think a little more bulk would make sense. But if you've seen Phil at all in the show, he is a full-size, full-grown lion. Only 2 studs wide on his back just does not make any sense at all. And then they use these tube pieces for the legs, which lots of LEGO Dreams characters do use. But I feel like it definitely should have been brick built at the shoulder, because there's absolutely no bulk at all here. And lions are like very muscular animals, so not seeing like any bulk at all here feels very weird to me. I like the shaping on the back legs a little bit more because there's a little bit more to them, but I think the front legs especially look pretty bad, especially with the coloration at the top. Those joint pieces absolutely should have been yellow or bright orange, and yes, it would have required introducing a new color for that part, but if they couldn't do that, just make it brick built instead, more like the back legs. The entirety of the limbs just feel overly simple to me, and it looks nothing like the character from the show. Which, when it comes to the face, I'm perfectly fine with that, because the character from the show looks awful, but the body could have very easily been adapted, because yeah, it's a realistic lion body. Obviously, it's okay to make it cartoony because it's LEGO Dreams, but this doesn't have the silhouette of a lion at all, and it takes away from the really cool character design that this could have had. Because I love the whole idea of the stained glass mane and the stained glass wings, but even the wings themselves I feel like don't go hard enough. The trans yellow disc piece right here is super cool, I really love that. And then like the quote-unquote feathers coming off do look really nice. Again, there's more of those stickers that I mentioned. But again, I just wish there was more of it, because these wings feel very gappy and very small. Like if there was multiple layers of the stained glass, this could have looked really beautiful, but it just leaves me feeling a little bit underwhelmed. The wings do connect on ball joints so they can be posed and moved around so you can actually make the lion flap in the air. And of course the legs connect on those rigid Technic joints so you can move them back, move them forward. And these pipe pieces allow the leg to swivel too, and the foot at the bottom can swivel as well. The fact that the build is so like light and thin does make it very posable, which could be seen as a good thing. Personally, I would have preferred a more accurate looking body design, but it is cool how high you can get the legs raised up and still have it stable. So it makes me appreciate this design a little bit more, but still at the very least, like this should have been recolored. That still feels very off to me. Then finally the tail at the back is cute. You have some more transparent pieces to represent more of that stained glass at the top, and that's on a mini ball joint too, so you can move that around. So overall, I don't know, I'm mixed on this build. I definitely prefer it to his design from the show, but I feel like there's a lot of missed potential here too. With some customization, I honestly think you can make this guy really good, but straight out of the box, he does leave a little bit to be desired. At the very least though, he's an important character from the show, so it's nice to finally get Phil the Manticore. But now let's move on to the main build, the first build of Castle Nocturnia. Now, when I first saw this set revealed, I didn't even really know what I was looking at. The idea behind it is sort of like an MC Escher type build, where like different parts of the build are going in different directions. So you have like the main tower right there, but then this platform right here is also another tower, and then we have a tree growing out this way. Each side of the build's also flat in the back, so you can change how it's displayed just by flipping it. Like if I want to pick this up and turn it over, and there we go, that's an option I have. I could display the build like that. Or alternatively, this is the final orientation. And I honestly don't know how I feel about this. I like it in theory, the idea of like an MC Escher type Lego set with like different stairs going in different directions and buildings like jutting out the side. That's really cool. But I feel like the build doesn't go hard enough into that idea. I honestly think this concept would be a lot better if the build itself was bigger, because yeah, it's just like 3 different directions of towers, and there's what, 1 stairwell down there? And then a few little things on the inner area, which we'll take a closer look at when we move up closer. This to me doesn't feel like a puzzle of different things, like all going different directions. Instead, it's just like, this is the section that goes up, this is the section that goes to the left, this is the section that goes to the right. And while every section looks good when it's the section that's pointed up, I feel like they don't do the best job at making everything look good when it's on its sides. Like in this orientation, which is the official orientation that you see on the box, I feel like the red building on the side just looks kind of ugly. It doesn't feel well incorporated into everything else. But yeah, those are my initial impressions of the build. Again, I really like the concept, it's just the actual execution feels a little bit iffy to me. But now let's move up a little bit closer and take a look at the more intricate details of this build. I don't even know where to begin with this. I guess I'll start with the main platform in the center. Out front here we can see the one stairway, which when we have it in either of the other orientations, this either goes down or up. But in this orientation, it sort of just serves as like a railing for the main build, which I think looks okay. I think the stairs would be more effective if they were in like the middle of the build instead of at the bottom, but it's not that bad. It's incorporated well enough. There's a little pathway right here with some jumper pieces where you can pose minifigures, and these stairs that lead to this teal area with the trees on top. We've got a little waterfall right here with a sticker on it, and this is honestly really cute. There's lots of lily pads and whatnot in here, as well as a bunch of fish. And this is a really cool detail, because the way you interpret the fish depends on how you have it oriented. If you have it oriented like this, it looks like the fish are falling downward into this small area below. But if you had the buildings rotated like this, it looks like the fish are just swimming in a pond right here, and the waterfall falls down to this section. Or in the final orientation, it looks like they're maybe in a fish tank or something instead, because you're observing them swimming from side to side. But yeah, that's a really good part that adds a lot of life to this build. Then back here we have a little doorway that a minifigure could walk through, and that leads inside to our first room in Castle Nocturnia. There's a little carpet right here, a little table with like ice cream or berries or something on it, and then a throne at the back here for a minifigure to sit. The back of the seat attaches on clips, so it can be moved a little bit if you want, and here's how it looks to have a minifigure actually on the throne. I like that you can see through the fish waterfall in the window. That's a really cool touch, and there's even a little bit of water pulled up like on the inside of the window. However, that's about all there is to this room. Moving up to the next level, we have a little bathroom, which I guess makes sense. Lots of LEGO sets come with bathrooms, and I don't know if I needed a bathroom in Castle Nocturnia, but I'm sure kids find it really funny, and that's why so many sets include it. But yeah, you've got some lavender toilet paper here, a toilet, as well as a sink. And here's the upper level of the waterfall too. You can see there's more like little plants and lily pads and whatnot, but these are actually brick built. Of course, LEGO always loves including frog pieces in sets, but coral's a more uncommon color. I don't know if I've seen a coral frog before. And it fits in with the lily pads, it fits the idea of LEGO Dreams. It adds some nice life to the build. There's also a little stairway right here that changes directions and goes into the red building, so we're not going to take a look at that just yet. We're going to continue up the white building. But quickly, I want to point out these trans yellow like lamp pieces. I think they look really nice on the build. With the white and the gold too, it's just a very pretty color scheme. And then we come up to the next level where we have a stickered stained glass window on the outside. I'm actually going to remove this so you guys can see it a little bit better. But it's stained glass depicting Castle Nocturnia, and you can see the giant trees on the top right there. The one in the set's not nearly that big. It would have been cool if it was, but that would have been difficult to do. And the castle in the art is a lot bigger here. It comes out, what, like 5 different directions, and you can assume there's probably a 6th going back. And there's 2 little hourglasses here, because that's just like the whole thing with Dreams, is they have hourglass symbolism everywhere. The graphic designer did a great job with this, though. It looks very pretty. And obviously fits with the whole stained glass aesthetic that Phil has, too. The inside of this level is a little library. You can see there's a bookshelf in the back, and there's a little seat to sit down. And this bookshelf has a hidden feature to it. You can actually open it up, and behind it there's this hidden chalice. It's just the classic LEGO chalice piece with a gem on the top. Nothing too crazy in terms of actual pieces, but from a play perspective, that's a cool thing to discover. And it tucks away real nicely in there. Out the other side of this section, we have another pathway that minifigures can walk along, and this bends down to get into that teal area. I do think this is a pretty cool transition, how it's like this rock path over what I assume is supposed to be grass, then it just transforms into the building. I would have liked maybe a smoother transition, because it does seem like the tree part abruptly cuts off. Like there's a really hard edge between the white and the tan right here, but it's also not the end of the world. I think it's done fairly well. On the outside of this bridge, we have a stickered Nexonite shield piece with a sun, moon, and 2 hourglass symbols on it. And there's also some vines crawling up the side of the building, which again looks pretty and gives more dimension and life to the build. Happy that's there. But then if we come to the very top of this building, this is actually my favorite part of the entire set. You've got these golden spikes and then everything ends off with the spire at the top. But this in the middle is what I really care about. This is a little brick-built hourglass, and I love how this is done. As you can see, it does actually rotate, so you can turn it upside down to start counting down time. And then if you want to imagine like time's running out, you flip it over again. You have bright orange tiles in there to represent the actual particles of sand, and that's a cool bit of consistency because that's the color that was used for the Sandman Tower set earlier this year. Not a color I would typically associate with sand, but in the LEGO Dreams world, that is the color that's used for sand. So it's nice to see that's actually used in the hourglass. And it's a ton of fun just to spin this around. And I think it's built into the actual structure of the tower really well. It looks like a piece of like architectural design, but it's also a really fun play feature to just move around. There's some trans yellow pieces from the Barrador set used at the very top, and it's cool to get those again, they're a very useful part. But I think that's most of what there is to the main white building, so now let me flip this over so we can take a look at this tan and red building on the side. With everything flipped, these stairs on the side suddenly look a lot more like stairs, and I actually really love how it looks to come from this level up to the next one. No studs or anything on the stairs, which is a bit unfortunate. Would have been nice to actually have a way to pose minifigures there. Obviously, you leave them there just to balance. Studs would have been a small but appreciated touch, though. There's a few stickers used in this part of the build, too. We have this giant sun and moon banner that hangs down, and that's really pretty. I love how that looks. Also, these red and gold hourglass banners, they're a lot smaller, and I think you get a total of 3 of them in this set. But then actually inside, there's not a ton going on in here. There's a bunch of these gray path pieces and little jumper pieces to move a minifigure along. And that's really all there is to the interior on this level. I do like the build of these windows right here, using like the ingot pieces to make them only ever so slightly open. That's a really cool detail. But yeah, there's really not much else going on, which is something I'll touch on more in a moment, but I want to get through all the different interior sections. So moving up to the upper level of the build, I mean, there's a little bit more going on here. We've got a barrel and a sword in here. The barrel's completely empty, but you can store extra studs for the stud shooter out front, which we'll take a look at in a moment. Lots of studs in here to pose minifigures. Like, if you want to really fill this up with figures, you definitely can. And then there's a little area in the back side of the tower, too, which looks to have, like, a bench in there. Nothing too crazy going on, but there's, like, 2 little windows. I would assume that would be, like, meant to be a jail cell or something, except for the fact that it's entirely open, so you wouldn't really be holding anybody. But I think this entire tower is meant to be, like, the defense section of Castle Nocturnia. This is where their weapons and everything are kept. So I guess, in theory, you would load this section up with troops. From the front, I do like these little spikes all over the build. I think they add some nice texture and make this part of the build look very unique. And the tiling on the roof is a fairly standard design, but it does look good. The Next Knight shields always work great for roofs. And I like that they alternate colors a bit and that the shields at the bottom are inverted to keep everything very rectangular. Then there's the turret at the front, which connects on a mini ball joint. You can move it down, move it up, however you want. And it has 2 stud shooters in it. You push down on them and studs will shoot out. In the case of this set, it uses trans red tiles. And that's most of what there is to this tower. There's another one of those red and gold banners on the other side right here, but then we come to the path that leads to the white tower, which we already looked at. So now let's move down to the tree section, but as we do, you may notice one other thing about the build, which is actually a really cool detail. In that main floor area that we looked at the very beginning, there's a trap door that opens up. However, there's no way to really grab onto it. But when you flip the castle over, gravity sort of causes it to fall open. So now we have a look inside, and you can see there's another little waterfall happening right here. So the water's flowing from that waterfall we looked at before, and then coming down into that trapdoor section. I actually really love that and how it's revealed when you move the build around, and how you can't see it by default. That's a really nice detail. I appreciate they included that. And now we come to the tree area. I think this surface of this area is honestly very, very ugly looking. It uses a ton of this dark tan and just uses a few studs to pose minifigures. I honestly think this would look so much nicer if it was completely covered in a plate, like one of these teal plates or something. Because I get what they were going for, right? It's supposed to be the side of the building, and you want to be able to pose minifigures, but it's also supposed to look flat. But in my opinion, it honestly just makes things look incomplete. Like, there's too many different colors going on here. You got the dark tan, you got the gray, you got the light tan, and you got the teal. Covering everything up like they do on the other surfaces just would have looked so much nicer. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of that. But turning the build in a way where the tree section's actually on top, I mean, this section does look good in isolation. Teal works to be like mystical grass. I like the sort of rocky structure that the trees are coming out of. And then the trees themselves use blue leaves, which is something we've seen before in LEGO Dreams in the very first wave. So it's cool to see that consistency. And in the leaves of the trees are pretty much all the different collectibles of this wave. Now, in terms of what these are, I can't tell you exactly because Dream Season 2 Part 2 hasn't come out yet, and I believe that's where these appear. We see something somewhat related to them at the end of Season 2 Part 1, but like, I don't think we have the full details of what all this is going to be, so pardon my ignorance if I don't know anything. But what I believe these are the different realms in the Dream world, like, captured by the Neverwitch, and they're each represented by a different printed tile, which I really love that these are all printed, and there's so many different ones, too. So this is very obvious. It's the candy realm. You can see the cake and candy and cookie there. there. This one, I'm actually not sure what this realm's supposed to be. It's got like a windmill and a skull with a waterfall. It looks cool, but I can't remember like where that would be placed in the show. And then this one up here is trans purple, and you can see it's got a video game controller on it, which is like the video game realm. This one's trans green, and I believe is meant to represent the fantasy realm. And the one in the back is trans light green, and it's got like a temple at the back and a giant forest, and I'm not sure the name of that realm either. But yeah, these are the collectibles of this wave, and this set seems to come with most of them. There's also one of Castle Nocturnia itself, which I don't believe comes in this set, though I guess that makes sense because Castle Nocturnia is here, it's the build. But the other interesting thing is the parts used here are actually new. That dome piece is not the existing dome piece that we had. Instead, it now has like this crystalline top to it, which looks very cool. It's a weird change to make because the other one like would have worked perfectly well. But I'm not against it because it's cool to see some differences. And then yeah, there's not much else to this part of the build. You have a few trees like growing out this side, and it's cool to see them like coming different directions. And as I mentioned before, this part of the path looks really good. I love all the jumper pieces so you can have minifigures actually walking along it. And then transitions into the white building that we looked at before. And then finally, I guess like as a little secret, underneath the tree there is a little cave area where you can pose minifigures. I like that there's roots coming down from the top. That's a very cool detail. But yeah, you got rocks in here, you got a mushroom in there, and this section's actually open from two different sides. The waterfall that's hidden behind the trapdoor is also open from the back right here, so you can access that even when the trapdoor is closed if you really wanted to. However, yeah, the best way to see it is when it's open. Finally, here's how the back of the build looks like this, and I mean, it's okay. There's obviously a lot of anti-studs right here, which aren't the prettiest. It would have been cool if they were covered up since this is like a valid orientation of this build. But I get why they're there, and the default orientation doesn't have any of those anti-studs, so I don't mind it a ton. However, I still wanted to show it off for the video. And there we go, there's everything for the main build of Castle Nocturnia. Of course, there is still the alternate build, which I'm going to rebuild it into in just a moment. Based on the instructions, it doesn't change a ton in this set, it just changes the very top of each of the sections, but I will still show it off for you guys. However, before that, quickly, I want to discuss my biggest issue with this set, and that's just the lack of anything in the interior. And I feel like this has been an issue with a lot of LEGO Dreamzzz sets. It was an issue with the Mr. Oz's Space Bus, and then also the Sandman Tower from earlier this year I remember being very disappointed by. Where the build can look really cool from the outside, and I don't think the build from the outside here is perfect, but it's a really creative idea, and with like a solid interior, I think I would like the set a lot more. But I feel like often the interior of Dream sets just feels so empty. Like, this lower level's fine, I like the table, I like the chair, but I feel like for a LEGO adventure theme, you should have something interesting in there to discover, right? Like some sort of stickered piece with lore that ties into the show, or like a hidden weapon somewhere. But everything feels very static, like there's very little motion in the entire build. Like, yeah, there's the bookcase that swings open, but that's the only thing in this $200 set. And behind it, there's just a chalice made out of regular LEGO pieces. It doesn't feel like super cool or exciting to discover. And same thing with the Red Tower, like this could have been a really cool armory with lots of weapons to choose from, and maybe a prison door that swings open back here to like take a captured enemy. But instead, you get a single barrel to hold some studs maybe, and a single sword. And the lower level straight up just has nothing in it. And of course, it's a LEGO, you can always customize these things, but I don't know, I feel like the set would have a lot more value if it had more of that stuff out of the box. Because all the collectibles in the set are just stuffed on the tree right here. Like, just having little printed or stickered tiles throughout the build that, like, mean something to the characters would do so much for the playability and just the overall appearance of the set. Because I genuinely think these rooms just look kind of boring, and they're not bad per se, like, nothing is wrong with them. They just feel like there could be so much more there. The coolest part of the build is definitely the hourglass at the top because it has that motion to it. And things like the waterfall because it actually feels unique and full of life. For $200 though, the build just feels like it has so much missed potential. I feel like they should have gone crazier with the different orientations idea, like if that staircase instead of being at the bottom was at the middle of the build, that would have looked really cool. And also I just wish the build felt more alive, because while there are some really cool aspects in here, like I love the hourglass, I love the waterfall, I love the stained glass, it ends up just feeling a little bit bland, which for a set like this really shouldn't be the case. However, of course, this is only one of two different builds in the set, so now let me rebuild this into the alternate build and see if the alternate build's any better. Let me really quickly show you the instructions though before I do that, because the instructions in LEGO Dream sets are always like very beautifully illustrated. So here's a look at the full castle from the front, and yeah, the hourglass especially looks really cool. Phil looks a lot better here too. And then once you get to a certain point in the build, you're given a choice as to which instructions you want to follow to finish off the build. And in the case of this set, there's very little difference between the two. It's only the last three bags that are different. But you can see at the top, this is the illustration of the build that I have together right now, and at the bottom, this is an illustration of the alternate build that I'm about to put together. Here's a final look at the original build, and here's a full illustration of the alternate build. Here's the alternate build all put together. You can see things have been shuffled around a little bit. The tree is now on top of the white tower, the top of the white tower is now where the red tower was, and the top of the red tower is now where the trees used to be. The tree on top of the white tower is an interesting change. I like the idea of the tree like growing through the building. It does replace the hourglass up there, which as I mentioned was my favorite part of the original build, so that's a shame to get rid of. But I have to say this is very creative, very unique looking, so I'll give it that. The most interesting part is probably the giant branch that hangs down and comes into like the main platform at the bottom. bottom. Moving down and looking at that, again, it's a cool concept, but honestly, I think it mostly just gets in the way, because now it's harder to pose minifigures down there and actually get to this doorway. All of the same domes are still in the tree. You've got 2 down here and then 3 at the top. So yeah, I don't know, it's a cool alternate option, but I definitely prefer the original here. Then at the red tower, we have a new giant turret that uses the pieces from the hourglass. This is actually pretty cool. You're able to turn it a full 360, which, by the way, you could do with the hourglass. I don't know if I showed that off when I was covering it, but obviously I can't go back and film now unless I rebuild that again, but yes, that's something you could do with the hourglass too. But yeah, that's great for play because you can turn and actually aim with it, as well as move the entire turret section up and down. I love the use of the trans yellow on the build to be like the energy at the back of the turret, and you can see it coming out the front too. And then we have a spike on this lower section, which just adds some nice ambiance to the build. This I do think is more interesting than the original red roof, but of course it requires you to sacrifice the hourglass, which I think was so cool and it's not worth doing. So again, personally, I still prefer the original build, but this is a great alternate option for play. It makes this building a little more interesting than it was otherwise, though the inside is still just as bland. They don't add anything more there. And then finally, where the tree used to be, we now have this little red house. This is actually really cute. It can fit the Dreamling characters that come in this set. They plop in there real nicely, and there's a little bed right here as well as like a little table. I like the sort of chimney on the side, and the windows all around look really nice. The only thing I don't like about this build is this stickered part right here, because of course that's another one of those red and gold banners like we saw on the red tower, but that's not used in the original build, that's only used in this build. And they don't give you an extra one of these Next Knight shield pieces. No, you have to apply this to one of the shield pieces that was used in the roof of the other build. So if you put this together and applied that sticker, and then you decided to rebuild it into the original build, you would be left with this sticker on the original build that just looks super out of place. So you would either have to remove the sticker and then just lose the sticker so you couldn't rebuild back into this, or keep the sticker on and just have it feel really out of place on that build. It would have been so easy just to include an extra red Next Knight shield piece, and I don't know why they didn't do that, but yeah, that's pretty disappointing to see, honestly. It's a small thing, but I do think that's significant. Aside from that, though, I think this is a good build. Between this and the trees on the original, honestly, I don't have a preference. Both are pretty good. In terms of original build versus alternate build overall, I definitely prefer the original build, but honestly, the alternate build's not bad. So much of the build stays the same that it really doesn't change too much. And it's not just rotating things around. Things are different. It gives you just different things to play with. Would you rather have the hourglass or a giant turret? Would you rather have the forest on the side or a little house? It's completely up to your own preferences. That sticker's really annoying, but everything else is pretty solid. I'm overall satisfied with this as far as things go. And there we go, that's everything I have to say for the main build of this set, at least for now. I'll talk about it a little bit more at the end of the video. For now, let's take a look at the minifigures in the set, and then I'll discuss the price and my overall thoughts. Here are the first 2 minifigures in the set. We have the all-new Season 2 versions of Mateo and Izzy. Mateo is a little bit different than a standard Season 2 version because he doesn't come with this like giant puffy jacket that he typically has in the other sets. Instead, he uses the Ninjago Master of the Mountain armor piece, which is an interesting choice. I guess it's because this is a castle, so he's armored up like a knight, but it's a little bit weird that he has the armor piece and the rest of his clothes are still the same. It doesn't look bad by any means. In fact, I actually think it looks kind of cool. It's just kind of a strange variant to get. But then Izzy's in her standard Season 2 design, which does come in a few sets, but it's one I'm a very big fan of. However, before we talk about the minifigures themselves, I want to talk about their accessories, because they both have these really cool new sword pieces. Both of them use this all-new hilt piece that has like an hourglass built into the hilt. As I mentioned in my review of this set, hourglasses are a big part of the theming of LEGO Dreams, so it only makes sense for that to be the actual weapon hilt. And it looks so cool, and you can attach whatever blade you want to the top. But then the swords are further themed around each character, because Mateo comes with a little Z-blob face at the bottom. Now that's a piece that was exclusive to the biggest set of the first wave, I believe. It was then released in a very cheap set earlier this year, and now it comes in a ton of sets this wave. But still, this is the version of Z-blob we see most in the show, so it's really cool to get him here. You do get an extra bit in this set as well. And including him as a part of the sword is just such a silly and fun concept, but honestly, it works really well. This is a super cool accessory and fits the world of LEGO Dreams perfectly. And then Izzy is not as interesting. She uses Translate Blue instead of Translate Green, and instead of Z-blob on the bottom, she's just got like a standard blue crystal piece. However, the cool part about this is the actual blade of the sword, because this is an all-new recolor for this wave. This is the Ninjago crystallized crystal blade piece, but now it's in like this sparkly light blue color. That is a very useful part to have. It works as like a giant shard of ice. I could see that being used in Ninjago in the future, but it also fits like Izzy's character and personality really well. I'm so excited that that part exists now, and it's one I'm definitely going to want to get more of. But now looking at the actual minifigures, the level of detail in Mateo is pretty amazing. I really like his design for Season 2. The highlight of this figure is absolutely the legs, because they're pretty much as detailed as they could possibly be. They're dual molded with side leg printing and toe printing, and there's so many different colors used. And it honestly does look really fantastic. I love the design of like the actual shoes. He's got like a logo on the side, which is reminiscent of like the Nike logo, though obviously not officially the Nike logo because it has to be unlicensed. And then he also has like this strap on the side of his pants that looks to have 3 crayons on it, which of course is because he's an artist. It makes sense for him to have something to be able to draw. That strap continues around to the other side too, and on the front you can see he's just got got some pockets, again, there's that same logo, and this really nice red belt on the hips. His torso's got this little illustration of Z-Blob on it, which is a cute touch. But then he's wearing like this sleeveless flannel, which I'm honestly not the biggest fan of. I think it looks a lot better when he has the jacket piece on top of it, but of course, as I mentioned, he's got that knight's armor instead. So the flannel looks fine. I like the idea of the flannel design. I think it would just look better with blue arms instead of the white. The whole sleeveless idea is a little bit weird to me. That might just be my own personal taste, though. And then face print is pretty standard for this wave, however, it is all new for this wave, and it's slightly different to his design from the first two waves. You see, Mateo as a character has vitiligo, and that was represented on his previous minifigures, but this is also the Dream World version of Mateo, so his like vitiligo was like merged with Z-Blob, so the lighter parts of his skin tone had turned green. Well, it's a little bit different this time around. Instead of like the Z-Blob effect matching the pattern of his vitiligo, it now extends down further and it's like dripping down his face. So far in the show, I don't believe we've seen any explanation to that, like why that is different, but it's a nice way to mix things up, and I do like this expression on him. It's very similar to many different Ninjago face prints. And then the alternate face, again, same pattern with like the Z-Blob slime, but now he's got like a little smirk. Hair is the same piece as the first wave, however, again, the printing is ever so slightly different. He still has the green streak in his hair, but now he also has a red streak in his hair. That's a cool way to mix things up and make him a little bit different. Overall, I'm a fan of his Season 2 design. I just think he looks better with the jacket on than with it off. And there's a full look at the back torso print with the armor removed. But then we have Izzy, who is probably my favorite minifigure of this entire wave. She looks phenomenal. Again, my favorite part about her is probably the leg print. Now, I think she would have looked really good if she had dual molded legs, which unfortunately she doesn't. It's not the end of the world because the legs have like wraparound printing, which basically achieves the same exact effect. However, actually dual molded legs would have made it feel even higher quality and just like ever so slightly more premium. Still though, I love the design. The like pink fluffy boots look so good, and the white stripes and the blue pants like really pop. But then she's got like this sleeveless design on her torso, and I love the colors they used. The magenta looks so pretty with the orange, and they've got like that lighter blue too on the belt. And what really seals the deal here is the cloth piece around her neck. She's got like this little scarf, and it's got like this animal print with magenta stripes on top of blue. Add the face makeup on top of everything, and yeah, this looks phenomenal. My least favorite part is probably the fact that the yellow arms blend a little bit with the orange torso, but honestly, that's not the end of the world. The figure still looks really, really cool. And aside from maybe adding dual molded legs, there's nothing I'd change about it. It's still the same hairpiece from the first wave, but that was one of the best parts of the first wave, that hairpiece, the dual molding, and like that sparkly blue and sparkly purple. So glad to see that still carry over here. And then yeah, the new face print's great. She's got like a very wide, happy smile on one side, and a more confident smirk on the other side. There's how that looks with the hairpiece. And there's a look at her back torso print too. Izzy was my second favorite minifigure of the first wave, but they improved her design so much this wave and made it even better. I really love this one, and I'm so glad to see her included in this set. Then here are the next two figures in the set, the evil counterparts of Mateo and Izzy. We have MadTeo and Izzie. Now, these are a little bit strange because MadTeo is based off Mateo's Season 2 design. However, Izzy and the rest of the kids are based off the character's Season 1 designs. So you'll notice a lot of aspects of MadTeo here are very similar to the minifigure we just looked at, but Izzy is basically an entirely different outfit here. But starting with MadTeo's accessories, he has this giant pencil which was Mateo's accessory in the first wave, but now it's got all these dark, evil, spooky colors. It's cool to see that carry over. However, what I care about more is Doomblob in his hand, which is of course the evil version of Z-Blob. And it's really cool to get a tiny printed dome piece for Doomblob too, just like we have for Z-Blob, which we just saw. And just like Z-Blob, you do get an extra of that in this set. Now, MadTeo does actually have the jacket that Mateo was supposed to have, though it's in gray this time around. And I talk about this more in my other reviews, but I do feel strange about this piece. Like, I don't know why it's 3D molded and not just printed on. It's a good looking part, it just feels not Lego-like to me. However, it fits him well enough, and I do prefer it to the flannel design. And then his hairpiece is the same, except black instead of brown, and he has two magenta streaks in his hair. And his face is completely white with like this pink triangle of makeup, which is very reminiscent of the Neverwitch, who's the main villain of this wave. She created all the doppelgangers, so it makes sense that they would emulate her makeup. There's the full back torso print with the jacket piece removed, and there's the full look of the front torso print. Again, he's got a flannel on just like Mateo has, but it's a little more tattered and beat up, and he of course has Doomblob in the center instead of Z-Blob. The leg print is also very similar to Mateo's, but weirdly it's not dual molded even though Mateo's is. That just creates a weird inconsistency between the two figures, but similarly to Izzy, it doesn't like really affect the design at all. It looks perfectly fine without the dual molding. Dual molding would have been nice, it would have fit really well, but yeah, it really doesn't affect things in the long term. And a small detail, but I like how the squiggles on the shoe are like more violent and crazy this time around, just to create like a bigger difference between the two. Oh, and the crayons were replaced with spray paint cans, which is a fun touch. And then Izzy is also very good, not to the same level as MadTeo, but she's probably my second or third favorite of like the evil main character designs, because Izzy from the first wave, as I mentioned before, is one of my favorite minifigures from that wave. Her design looked looked really, really good. And they took that here and made it evil and corrupted, and the color scheme just looks really great. First of all, she's got the same hairpiece that Izzy has, though now it's dual molded in black and trans pink. And it's really cool to see that in solid colors in general, because Izzy's hairpiece is entirely transparent. So this does give this a very different look, but the trans pink keeps like the magical dreamlike feel. She also has a new armor piece here that's used for all the evil characters in this wave aside from MadTeo. And this is a bit of a weird one because it's like very small. You have a few like trans pink spikes, but honestly it's not like that prominent. And it's sort of like dripping down the torso. It would have been cool to see them go more all out and make this like bigger and more elaborate. But honestly I think it works for the purposes of this character because it makes it feel like a corruption on that original figure. And you can still see so much of that original design. Taking the armor piece off, there's a full look of the torso, and my favorite detail here is the fact that she uses yellow. Because they very easily could have just leaned entirely into the black, purple, magenta just to make it seem, ooh, evil, spooky. But instead, the yellow like really pops against everything to make this character truly feel like her own thing and not just like generic evil character. And Neverwitch does use a little bit of yellow in her logo, which you see in the belt right here, but I'm glad that Izzy carried that over a little bit more. On the original Izzy figure too, there was some printing that like continued the robes down into the legs, and you can see that's the case here too. However, the robe is more tattered. That's a small but appreciated detail that you actually see in a lot of the evil characters. And then Izzy also has a waist cape just like Izzy in the first wave, but once again, now it's broken down and tattered. It's not as solid as Izzy's was. There's a look at the back torso print in the alternate face too. That alternate face, I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of that. I feel like the expression's a little confusing. I'm not sure exactly what's trying to be expressed there. But once again, the yellow armor looks so good. The color scheme on this figure in general is fantastic. So Mateo's easily the best of like the evil doppelgangers just because he's the most detailed one. But Izzy's pretty high up there too. They did a lot on this minifigure and she looks fantastic. Here are the next two figures in the set. We have Mrs. Castillo and we have Sneak. Mrs. Castillo's a really weird looking minifigure. She was weird in the first wave and this is a new version of her and she's still weird now. Don't know what's going on with her torso, but she's got like this tiny little dress and she uses like the LEGO Super Mario like character arms, but then just a standard minifigure head at the top. She does have an all new design this time around though. I like the subtle like white design in her robes. It's not super easy to see, but if you look up close it's there. And the pale like salmon outfit underneath is pretty nice. And I like the blue belt and blue necklace as well. And that blue ties into this makeup on her face, which I'm very curious what in the world's going on there. That same makeup's used on Zoe and some of the other sets this wave. But yeah, it's like a straight shot of blue with a blue triangle at the top. Very funky looking. And that's on both sides of her face too. On the alternate face, she's like smiling and happy and laughing. She holds a staff with an hourglass on the top and a gem above that. And around the back, she has a little brick built backpack with a fork, a plant, as well as a little flower. But the actual minifigure just has studs back there where you can build whatever you want. This is just the default build in the set. So yeah, I mean, I think she's a good minifigure. She's just such a strange one. We've never seen a minifigure with proportions like this before. Still don't know how I feel about the Mario arms on a normal minifigure, but the face print is really good for whatever purpose that's trying to serve. And I do like the actual design. It just feels very different for LEGO. And then Sneak's a character I'm happy to see we're still getting, because he was a huge part of Season 1 but didn't come in any sets in the first wave. We did get him in some of the January sets earlier this year, but I'm glad he still comes in sets now. He's got this really cool molded body piece that fits a minifigure head on the top, but then he just uses like the man-bat earpiece. Good expression on him where he's like angry and drooling. And there's no alternate face on this figure. Not a super complex or complicated one, but one I'm very happy to get again. He's a good character and a really cool looking minifigure. Then we have the little Dreamling figures, which I still don't have an official name to call this scale of figure. I would say Dreamling is fine, but now they've come in sets outside of LEGO Dreams, but they're not Dreamlings. They were used in LEGO D&D as well as LEGO City at this point. So tiny figures, midi figures, whatever you want to call these guys, you get a total of 4 of them in this set. This one's called the Dreamling Root, and this one's called the Dreamling Bath, which that's a very funny name. But yeah, the Dreamling Root's the most interesting one because he's new for this wave and he uses like the Thanos head at the top. Very wide, happy expression on him and then nothing around the back. Goofy looking character, but I actually kind of like him. Happy he was included. And then the Dreamling Bath was just one of the mushroom characters from the first wave, though now with a shower cap on his head. Face print's nothing new, he's still got like all the golden spores, which actually do look really nice. Cool to get these heads again though, I wish they came with the actual mushroom caps. However, I will say Bath is a very funny variant. And then we also have a Dreamling Wizard and a Dreamling Knight, which are the same exact face print and torso print just with different accessories. It's cool to get the classic wizard hat in blue, that is a very common color for that part, but it's one that makes me nostalgic for like older LEGO, so it's great to get here, as well as the little beard accessory. Then there's like a magnifying glass piece, which yes, it actually works if you've never seen those before. And then this guy just has a little knight's helmet. These guys are cute bonuses, but honestly they don't add a ton to this set. Not nearly as interesting as the actual minifigures. We do have one animal in this set too, a red panda, and this guy was introduced in LEGO City earlier this year. But it's great to get him in more sets because this guy is absolutely adorable. He's still molded in white in the new reddish-orange color, and then his little feet at the bottom as well as his face are printed. And yeah, as I said, this guy's absolutely adorable. Love the little face at the front, got a stud at the top too to keep him feeling LEGO-like, and if you want to build something there you can, and he connects at the bottom onto 2 studs. Glad to see this guy coming in more sets, and I am all for him coming in as many sets as he can. I'm not sure why he's here, but I will gladly take him. And then the final figure in the set is the main villain of this wave, the Never Witch. Now, she did come in one set earlier this year, and now she comes in lots of sets this wave, but she is a really cool looking design. She uses the LEGO Hidden Side, like, ghost tail piece that was later reused for Ninjago and, like, Energy Nia, though now it's dual molded in solid black and trans pink, and as we just saw with all the evil characters, that fits her vibes and her powers really well. But with that removed, the actual minifigure is really good too. I saw some people saying in the comments that she would look better if she had a cape, and the more I look at her, I definitely agree. This hairpiece is just so elaborate, it feels like something's missing at the back, and I don't know what. A cape would probably help things. I do think she feels more complete when the ghost tail's there, but yeah, with it removed, she does feel like something's missing. But anyway, this hairpiece is phenomenal. It's dual molded in black and coral to have like this crown there, and I love this raven design out the back because ravens are like her whole thing. She has like an army of these ravens that attack, so it's cool to see that incorporated like in her hair clip at the back, and even like these curls at the bottom look really nice. But then her actual torso leg design is super cool because it seems so like unreal, so dreamlike, so not physical. You've got like magenta on one side and silver on the other, and it's hard to place like what this outfit's actually supposed to be physically. It's just like a bunch of swirls and stuff, and then it seems like gemstones at the top and her symbol in the center. But I think that really works for a nightmare witch. She seems like the kind of thing you would see in your dreams. And her face print is really good too. Very sinister, very expressive smile on this side. And then on the alternate side we have a much wider smile, and there's that makeup that I mentioned before that MadTeo also has. If you want to see more details on my thoughts on this figure, go check out my other reviews because I covered her quite a bit already. But in short, she is really good. I don't think she's as good as like the doppelganger figures, but she's still incredibly solid, and I just love the whole design they did here. And so, overall, what are my thoughts on this set? Would I recommend this set? Well, I haven't touched on the price in this video yet, and the price on this one, it's not like the worst thing ever, but it's not great. I'll just cut to the chase. Honestly, no, I don't recommend this set. Now, I'll be honest, like, people seem really excited for this one, so maybe it's just the kind of set that's not for me. But I don't know, having this built up, this is the kind of thing that feels a lot better in theory than it does in execution. The whole idea of being able to flip it different directions and have, like, different buildings go up, that's really cool. I love that idea. I just feel like they didn't lean hard enough into it. I wish there was more, like, twisting and winding stairways to confuse, like, what's the top, what's the bottom? Instead, it just feels like there's 3 distinct sections. And nothing really overlaps in any way aside from like the waterfall compartment that opens up. And then the other thing is just how sparse the interior is. That's so disappointing to me. Like, no, it's not difficult to populate it with your own stuff if you wanted, but this is the exact same issue the Sandman Tower had earlier this year, where like it had some cool features on the outside, but inside there was very little to do. It leaves a lot to be desired. And like, if you're gonna create a castle, you should fill it with stuff. I don't see why not. The other thing is the minifigure selection. It's good. I like all the minifigures in this set, but for $200 I would like a little bit more. Because there's only 6 actual minifigures, 7 if we count Sneak. And then you get 4 of the Dreamlings, which are like fine characters to get, but they mostly feel like bonuses. They're not actual characters in the show. They're very simple, very small pieces. They shouldn't be a replacement for actual characters. I think if the set was like $150, I'd like it a lot more because the lackluster minifigure selection wouldn't feel so bad because it'd be like, okay, the build's really good for the price, and the minifigures leave a little to be desired, but that's fine. But yeah, $200 is a premium price for this set, and I just don't think you get a premium value inside here. This is far from the worst set ever, and there are still a lot of things I like about it. But unless you're really in love with this one, honestly, I think you're better off spending $200 elsewhere. But of course, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think of this set in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to my channel if you're new. And let me know in the comments which Summer 2024 LEGO Dream set do you want to see an early review of next. But as for this video, I think that's about all I have to say, so thanks for watching everybody, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!